It's 4 o'clock on my computer, so we can get started. We do have a quorum. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Peter Lundstrom, and I will call the Environment Committee to order for April 9th, 2024. Objection, we have a great agenda before us, and so we have nothing on our consent agenda. We do have 2 items on our non-consent business items today. First up, we have 2024-80, a master contract.
Minutes?
Yep, we do have minutes. By golly, Councilmember Wolf, paying attention as usual. From March 12th, we have the approval of the March 12th, 2024 Environment Committee minutes. Would you like to make that motion?
Approval.
Second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries. Thank you. Thanks for keeping us on track. And that does take us to the master contract for 2024-80. Ms. Heflin, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Mr. Chair, members of the Environment Committee. My name is Rene Heflin. I'm Manager of Plant Engineering for Environmental Services. I'm here to present business item 2024-80, Master Contracts for Wastewater Treatment Plant Environmental Permitting Assistance, Contract 23P092. This group of contracts will support environmental services staff in permit reporting and permit renewals. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency reviews air and water permits every 5 years, and many of ours are up for renewal. We anticipate discussions on sulfates, per and polyfluoral alkyl substances, or PFAS, and nitrogen. This group of contracts will also support environmental review work and permit modifications needed to support capital projects. I don't know where to point. There we go. The total value of this contract is $2 million based on level of effort estimates in 3 service areas: air quality permitting assistance, water quality permitting assistance, and waste management compliance. The waste management compliance includes updating spill containment control and countermeasure plans for each of the plants. The request for proposals, or RFP, gave proposers the option to propose on 1 or more of the 3 service areas. The request for proposals was issued July 7th of 20. Business enterprise goal of 17%. 5 responsive proposals were received on August 29th, 2023, and in accordance with the Brooks Act, the evaluation of proposals followed a 2-step process. 3 environmental services staff served on the evaluation panel. The evaluation panel selected 4 proposers based on quality of proposals, qualifications of the proposers, and experience of the proposers. The 4 selected proposers met the DBE requirements as determined by the Office of Equal Employment Opportunity. 3 environmental services staff served on the negotiation team. This is the 2nd step. The negotiation team found that the proposed prices of all 4 proposers were fair and reasonable in terms of labor rates and also indirect costs. All 4 selected proposers requested exceptions to the sample architectural and engineering services contract given in the RFP, and the council was not able to reach mutually agreeable terms with one of the proposers, and in a letter dated February 15th, 2024, that proposer ceased negotiations. The evaluation panel recommended distribution of the remaining work and contract value among the 3 recommended proposers in accordance with the RFP and the negotiation team concurred. The proposed action before the Environment Committee is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to award and execute contracts 23P092 A through C for wastewater treatment plant environmental permitting assistance for a cumulative not to exceed amount of $2 million in service areas and amounts as follows. Bar Engineering Company, 23P092A, Air Quality Permitting Assistance and Waste Management Compliance, $700,000. Brown and Caldwell, 23P092B, Water Quality Permitting Assistance, $400,000. And Stantec Consulting Services Incorporated, 23P092C, Air Quality Permitting Assistance and Water Quality Permitting Assistance, $900,000. With that, I could answer questions.
Any questions? Yeah, please, Councilman Carter.
Yeah, I was just wondering, just for my enlightenment, the Brooks Act process, is that just engineering and architects, or what does that refer to?
Mr. Chair. Yes, when we have, since this is a PFA-funded project, that allows us to do first a technical evaluation of technical proposals, and for us to make a selection, followed by the review of cost. So it's the two-step, an evaluation and negotiation. And it has to do with the PFA work.
Public Finance Authority, right?
So it only applies to contracting with engineering and architectural firms, or that's what I'm trying to get at.
Thank you. Jody will help. Yeah, because I think it might apply to other contracts as well.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, council members, Jody Jacoby, Chief Procurement Officer. And so Brooks Act is for federal contracts where there's licensed and certified staff. And so the primary consideration, and as Rene accurately described, it's two-step, is to ensure that the consultant has the highest technical rating and they're scored and ranked in that order. And then the cost proposals are sealed and they open up the cost proposal in that order of technical rating and work to negotiate. And so they do one at a time, but it's that technical rating because of that specialized certification and the requirements, that's the utmost importance.
So has that made it less likely historically that the DBE firms, which BIPOC people would be impacted in a negative manner, or how does that stack up historically?
We're bringing all sorts of people out there.
Bench here.
I just never
We got
seen
a-
it.
we got a
So
deep
that's why
bench. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, Council Committee members, Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director, Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. Councilmember Carter, the short answer is no. The process itself is not inherent to create any barriers or participation from DB firms. All of the proposers met the goal. Variety of DBEs participated, and this is a common procurement process across, not only here in the state, but across the country.
Okay. Thanks. Just kind of.
Great question. Councilmember Osborne.
Yes, thank you. Speaking about the EPA, it says here there's 17% goal. What was the actual number for this contract?
All of them committed to 17%. Let's see. I think 6 different firms are being used across, just looking at the firms, very diverse, both in terms of gender and race.
So it's just 17 flat.
Yes, yes. We do often sometimes proposers exceed, but in this case, each of them committed to the 17%.
Thank you. Great. Other questions? Is there a motion? Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say yes. Say aye. Aye. Say something. Say aye, opposed nay. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Very good, and that takes us to our second non-consent business item, which is 2024-81, an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Minneapolis. Welcome back, Mr. Wedin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, council members. Again, for the record, my name is Tim Wedin. I am Assistant Manager with the Interceptor Engineering Group and Environmental Services. I'm here to present to you on business item 2024-81, an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Minneapolis. So I'm going to dive right into what the intergovernmental agreement is going to cover. A couple of different projects that we're working on with the city of Minneapolis in 2 different locations. The first area, project site 1, is in the area regard to interceptor 1MN330, specifically manhole 56 at the intersection of First Avenue South and East 27th Street, excuse me. This is a part of a city-led project that includes the reconstruction of First Avenue South. The project itself includes the demolition of manhole 56, which was originally constructed back in 1888. We'll be constructing a new manhole at this location, reconstructing a number of connections from the city's existing sanitary sewer to that manhole. Total estimated cost for that work is approximately $500,000. Just a little bit of orientation. This is on the intersection of First Avenue South and 27th Street East. It's just a block east of Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis. The second project that we're working on with the city of Minneapolis is on 1MN310, manholes MH10 through manhole 16. It's a part of their the city's Second Avenue, excuse me, looking at the wrong page, part of the city's 2nd Street North sanitary sewer improvements project. So they're doing some work on the city sanitary sewer. We had planned some work on 1MN310 in this area as well. This is allowing us to get in and do some work on those manholes that we had planned on rehabilitating as part of that project. Get in, do that work in conjunction with the city of Minneapolis, so we're not coming back and tearing up their fresh new road again. So the project, again, is being led by the city of Minneapolis. It includes the reconstruction of manholes 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, as you can see on that map, extending from Plymouth Avenue North all the way up to just south of West Broadway on 2nd. We'll be demolishing manhole 11 and constructing a new structure. We're estimating that the total project cost is about $3 million, be a little less than $3 million for that work. Part of the reason for that cost is just the depth of the structures there. We're looking at about 30-foot deep manholes that we're going to be excavating in a fairly narrow corridor on top of a 54-inch RCP pipe. So there's a lot of coordination that we need to do. Not only with the city sewer and with our sewer, but also a lot of the other utilities that are in that area. So with that, our proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize its regional administrator to execute a cooperative construction agreement with the city of Minneapolis for the design and construction of access improvements to interceptors 1MN310 and 1MN330 for an amount not to exceed $3,500,000.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Wedin? Straightforward project. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It seems like a good idea to do it right rather than just do 2/3 of it and leave the other chunk, so I'm glad we're being proactive about it. I would move approval.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries. Thank you. Last but not least, our information item for this afternoon, Mr. Colvin. Mr. Schon, welcome. Water Systems Plan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the Environment Committee. For the record, my name is Kyle Colvin. I am the manager of the Wastewater Planning and Communities Programs Group. And then here with me today to co-present is Emily Schon, principal engineer who is also with the Wastewater Planning and Capital Programs Group. Today we'll be reviewing the purpose and contents of the Wastewater System Plan. In August of last year, I made a presentation to this committee and provided a very high-level description of what the system plan is and what it contains. Today, Emily and I, basically it's mostly Emily, will be providing some of the additional detail of what's contained in the system plan. But I will start off with, again, kind of giving a very high-level general overview of what the system plan is. Again, most of you know this, but just to reemphasize it, the system plan is a section of or a component of the overall water policy plan. The water policy plan with the system plan then gets rolled up into the overall regional development guide. So last time around, each system plan and individual chapter was kind of represented by a different publication and a different document. This time around, I should say, the intent is to wrap all of the documents, all the system plans under the regional development plan. So it's a little bit different approach than what we took 10 years ago. The water policy plan provides the framework for an integrated approach to water planning in the areas of water resources, water supply planning, and wastewater services. It contains the values, visions, goals, and objections that will be implemented through the policies in the water policy plan. And the regional wastewater system plan is the mechanism or the tool, if you will, in which the wastewater-related vision and goals are supported through its implementation. The system plan, by definition statutorily, is a plan that includes the assignment of sewer population, household, and employment forecasts by community that is served by the regional wastewater system, and also breaks down those forecast assignments by each one of our 9 wastewater treatment facilities that the council owns and operates. It's also important to note that the council is in the current process of rebranding the wastewater treatment facilities. If you haven't already, you'll start to hear them being referred to as water resource recovery facilities. I had to make sure I got that right. The system plan includes the goals, objectives, and priorities for the provisions of wastewater services, both regionally and locally. It includes the system description, the service and system expansion and staging of the regional system, and the necessary capital investments to implement the plan, and it identifies the funding sources which will be required in order to finance those improvements. It also identifies the challenges for future service delivery, such as regulatory requirements. It identifies the existing requirements that we face in each one of our treatment facilities. And it also identifies those regulatory requirements that we see coming on the horizon, just so that we can be plan for it, be better prepared for those new restrictions or regulations when they come to fruition. It also identifies the challenges for future service delivery. Oh, I already said that. It also identifies the opportunities for system and service enhancements such as wastewater reuse, energy, and nutrient recovery. It references the policies to support and put into effect the Council's goals and objectives and priorities for the delivery of wastewater services, both short-term, within that first 20-year planning horizon, or out to 2050. And it also identifies the long-term vision of the necessary system improvements that will be required beyond 2050. So it identifies those long-term treatment facilities, if you will, that we see that will be needed beyond that initial or that first 20-year planning horizon. It also includes the estimated level of funding to implement the system plan or the capital improvement plan, which is required to be a component statutorily. And it outlines the relationship between the system plan to local comprehensive plans, which requires the local plans be consistent with the system plan. If the local plan is found to be inconsistent with the system plan, the council can require the community to revise and resubmit their plan. I believe all of you are probably familiar with the situation we have with North Oaks. That's an example of where a local plan is inconsistent with the system plan. Or in some cases, if the local plan is inconsistent with the system plan can be updated to reflect the local plan's plan for service. And a good example of that was when Credit River came in, they requested service for the first time. The system plan at that time had identified service to Credit River as being long-term or post the 20-year planning horizon. And so this time around, we will actually revise the system plan to show that first 20-year of staging that Credit River is reflected in their 2040 plan as being requested for service. Again, like the regional development guide, the system plan gets updated every 10 years. That outlines a 20-year vision for service provision of services. It includes the population, household, and employment forecast, as I mentioned previously, and projects the resulting wastewater flows from that projected growth, broken down again by community and each one of our 9 water resource recovery facilities. Those wastewater projections are then compared against our system and the system capacity that exists. And in those cases where we determine that the flow projections exceeds that capacity, the system plan will program the necessary improvements that will be required in order to provide that level of service. And I believe we made a presentation here a couple of months ago when we went through the scenario planning, and that was part of the exercise with the initial rollout of forecasts, as we identified what that growth resulting from those scenarios would be, and then identified what system capacity enhancements would be required. Because the planning period looks out 20 years from a service capacity requirement, and systems are usually built beyond that 20-year planning horizon, it's very rare that we find that forecast in the 20-year period actually represents the need for capacity enhancements, just because the design of the system is well beyond that 20-year period. So therefore, it's very rare that we see where system capacities need to be included, or system improvements need to be included in the system plan. It does happen, and this system plan will include some improvements that reflect a need to accommodate future growth. The system plan does not include projects that have not been determined to be economically feasible, nor does it include projects that are not in alignment with our policy requirements for service. This slide here basically was the same slide that I presented back in August. Provides a high-level overview of the system plan content, so I won't go through it again. However, again, I think it's important to point out that the system plan, again, focuses on that first 20-year planning horizon, but it also does identify some of those post-20-year projects that we have identified as being necessary to accommodate the long-term growth. And there is one note on here, looking at this slide, something I didn't actually pick up in August. It does identify Cologne as a future facility, and in the system plan, which the last system plan and in this proposed plan, it does identify the need for a treatment facility in Carver County. It's likely that regional facility will be centralized somewhere in Carver County. And when you look at a map, the city of Cologne is pretty much in the center of Carver County. So the intent and the likelihood would be that this long-term Carver County facility would be located somewhat centrally in Carver County, but probably in close proximity to the Minnesota River. So I just wanted to point out that the site for the clone facility has not been identified yet. That would be part of a future study. And then now with that, I'll turn it over to Emily, who can dive into more of the specifics of the system plan and contents.
All right, thanks, Kyle. All right, I'll start with our long-term service area map. And overall, in my part of the presentation, I'll be sharing more of the specific updates and items in the wastewater system plan. So you've seen this map, and this is just an illustration of areas that are currently served and can be served in the future by our water resource recovery facilities. The colors indicate the water resource recovery facility. Dark colors indicate area currently served, and then the lighter colors would indicate area that could be served in the future. The Metro, for example, is the green area, the Blue Lake is the blue, and each water resource recovery facility has its own color. So I mentioned that these areas represent what could be served with our existing facilities, but I will say the regional wastewater system is expanded as necessary to facilitate development in the communities consistent with their approved comprehensive sewer plans. On this slide, I did call out a few of our upcoming projects. I'll get into more details about other projects later, but I wanted to show that we do have investments of all types all across the region. So our upcoming work ranges from acquiring a site for a future Scott County water resource recovery facility to a new interceptor to serve Elko New Market area and Farmington area to relieve some interceptor capacity concerns, to serving the Hastings area with new infrastructure. And then there's continuous improvements and upgrades to the solids processing at the Metro Water Resource Recovery Facility. And then lastly, there's progress on the new Crow River Water Resource Recovery Facility in Rogers, and that also will relieve capacity concerns in the Elm Creek Interceptor. We also do regular maintenance and inspections of our other infrastructure like lift stations, meter stations, interceptors, force mains, etc., which I'll mention on a future slide as well. So when we consider the past investments in the system over the past 50 years and with recent inflation, the present value of our conveyance and treatment system using current cost adjustment factors has increased to $9 billion. So we've been pretty busy over the past couple of years, more than a couple of years.
Councilmember Wolf has a question or a point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I started at the council, it was $4 billion. So.
I last heard 7.
Yes.
Wow. That's more than double.
Yeah, significant.
Indeed.
So for how those areas are determined, we consider a variety of inputs. We look at the capacity of each water resource recovery site, considering future regulatory scenarios. We look at the potential developable surface area that could be served by each facility. We look at the capacity of existing interceptors, the potential for new water resource recovery facilities and service area revisions. And then we consider wastewater generation rates, which are based on location, proximity to transit, and major highways and physical features of the area. So there's a lot of different components that go into how that map is developed. So the system plan also describes our capital program, which provides capital investments to preserve and rehabilitate our wastewater infrastructure, meet more stringent water and air quality regulations, and expand the system capacity to meet regional growth needs. So as mentioned before, our projects span the entire region in different types of infrastructure. So some of our projects high level include interceptor rehabilitation or new construction, same with lift station and flow metering, and then resource recovery facility work, which could be expansion, upgrades, rehabilitation, as well as solids processing improvements. So the projects in our capital program are categorized into the 3 objectives that are on the slide. We have asset preservation, which preserves our existing investments. We have system expansion, which are projects that expand our system capacity through resource recovery facility or interceptor extensions. And then quality improvements, and those projects may address safety, regulatory standards, sustainability, et cetera. The amount we spend in each year varies, or in each objective varies year to year depending on what's in the capital program. So from 2014, a majority of the funds were spent in the asset preservation category. And in the near future, we may see a shift in that the majority of funds will be spent under the system expansion category as we expand with new water resource recovery facilities, facility work, and related interceptors. In the next 6 years, we see projected capital investment split to 37% on interceptor work and 63% on resource recovery facility work. We use the estimated value and the useful life of our assets to identify an asset preservation investment objective or our annual target spending amount to maintain the system. So ignoring the $9 billion value that I just shared, previously to this round, we were using $7 billion as the present value of our infrastructure. So using that value and the average useful life of our infrastructure, we set a goal of spending 1.8% of the asset value per year, or around $130 million in rehabilitation. And we feel that that level of investment is necessary to maintain our system. So here's that other slide I referenced with some other upcoming projects. Again, you can see that it spans all types of infrastructure all across the region. And we do spend about $110 million on average per year on capital projects. In the first part of this planning cycle, so over the next 5 years, we might see a higher spending rate just because we have a few larger projects going on that use our design build project delivery method. Some of those projects include water resource recovery facilities, the solids processing improvements at the Metro facility, as well as an office and lab update or a new building at the Metro facility, and then a Scott County resource recovery site acquisition, just as a few examples. So kind of like what Kyle alluded to, this system plan is just a continuation of the 2040 system plan. The wastewater long-term system planning capacity the time horizon goes beyond the 20 years of the regional development guide. We're maybe more of a 70 to 80 year planning cycle. So overall, that means the population forecasts that come out with the regional development guide normally don't exceed what we're expecting in the next 20 years for the wastewater planning horizon. So we don't have too many new additional capacity enhancements or investments other than what's already in our wastewater system plan. And another component of the system plan is our resource recovery strategy. So as supported by the change in name to water resource recovery facilities, we do continue to invest in activities that recover resources, for sure water, but others include energy and nutrients. And we investigate other opportunities for other activities. In the system plan, we describe the current and future resource recovery opportunities, the things that we want to do more of, and the things that we are keeping tabs on to potentially implement in the future. So our current efforts include water through our wastewater treatment process, where our product is the clean effluent downstream with discharge to receiving water bodies. We have energy and heat recovery. We recover heat from incineration of solids waste, and we harvest biogas from biosolids production. Biosolids is also a resource that we recover, and it's a nutrient-rich fertilizer that we provide to local farmers and other partners. And then we do have internal reuse at a few of our plants just for internal application like cooling and wash water. In the next 20 years, we are investigating and may implement, if and when practical, thermal heat recovery from wastewater effluent, regionalizing our solids management so that the entire region can benefit from those recovered resources. We'll look at other heat recovery opportunities at our facilities and continue to support wastewater reuse efforts across the region. Shifting to contaminants and regulatory scenarios, we continually monitor and work to meet the regulatory limits on our facilities. Regulatory upgrades are not incorporated into the capital improvement program until they become a requirement via a rule, permit, or other enforceable regulatory vehicle. So I'll share a little bit about the contaminants on the slide. We are involved in regulatory planning and discussions to be aware of what may be coming in terms of changing regulations to better plan for any operational changes if necessary. So specifically for these contaminants, for phosphorus, in response to past regulation, the Met Council has taken around a 70% reduction in permitted total phosphorus levels since 2010. Most of our water resource recovery facilities now have biological phosphorus removal systems and consistently meet standards. For nitrogen, we have just recently received a nitrogen reduction strategy plan for wastewater treatment facilities from the MPCA. This document will include the nitrogen reduction plans that will be added to our wastewater permits during the reissuance of those permits. So like I mentioned, we just got that this month, so we're in discussions for next steps and response for that one. For sulfates, an existing 1973 water quality standard, which was implemented to protect wild rice, will be implemented in the NPDES SDS permits. This will likely affect most of the Met Council water resource recovery facilities. And PFAS, the regulatory environment is continually changing. 3 of our resource recovery outfalls currently have MPCA established site-specific water quality criteria. So we assist with that and are participating in the Minnesota PFAS wastewater monitoring plan. And lastly, I'll mention chloride. Chloride is not a regulatory concern at the moment, but it is an issue for reuse. Higher chloride concentrations do make reuse more costly to implement. And I'll note that upgrades to our treatment processes may not be the best answer to address changing regulations. In some cases, source reduction is the best option for lowering contaminant limits. All right, we also update and confirm wastewater flow projections, which are used internally for growth and capacity planning, as well as used by our communities for their future flow estimations and sewer design. We also check this assumption and compare it with domestic water use values to make sure that they are in line and make sense. So the value we use is an actual average of our currently available metering data. So currently we use an average wastewater generation rate of 85 gallons per day per person. Our more recent metering data has shown a decrease to 70 gallons per day per person. When we do new design, we also assume and recommend an even lower generation rate of 60 gallons per day per person to reflect water conservation measures, efficient design, as well as influent infiltration mitigation. In the Regional Development Guide update process, the research team analyzed a few potential growth scenarios and what that could mean for the region. The most recent forecasts, which you've seen in other presentations, predict over 300,000 new households in the next 30 years. And the breakdown of where those households will occur are bulleted below. So 31% in urban centers and urban communities, 43% suburban and suburban edge, 19% emerging suburban edge, and 7% rural communities. So these early version forecasts show that most growth in areas already in our service area, thereby efficiently using our current infrastructure. With our currently identified projects and improvements in the wastewater system plan, we do have the capacity to provide for these 20-year growth projections. And growth focused in our service area is a better utilization of capital funds and investments. The growth in the rural communities are served by both local treatment works and individual subsurface sewer treatment systems. So although more of these individual treatment systems are being added to the region, we do have other subsurface treatment systems that are going offline when they get connected to the regional system. And this is just a short schedule for next steps for the system plan and the water policy plan. So the system plan as a component of the water policy plan will be presented back to the committee again at the end of May. By July, we will be seeking approval from the Environment Committee for the release of the plan for the public comment period. And then if that all goes according to plan, the public comment period will begin in August. And this is all for the overarching goal to have the regional development guide with the water policy plan approved at the start of the new year, 2025. So you'll have an opportunity to review the system plan when this and the water policy plan are released. But if you have any questions ahead of time or comments, please let us know. You don't have to wait until July. All right, and we'll take any questions.
Thank you very much. Very thorough and interesting report. Questions from the committee? Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you give a little more detail about the Elko Newmarket Farmington project?
Yes, Mr. Chair, committee members, Councilmember Wolf, I expected we'd probably get that question. When the city of Elko Newmarket was provided service, it was through a request through the comprehensive plan. It was to basically phase out the local wastewater treatment facility that they had. When the system was built to phase out that facility, it directed flow to an existing part of the interceptor system that's located through Lakeville and Farmington. And it was an interim basis for providing that service. It was borrowing existing capacity during an interim period of time until growth in Lakeville, Elko Newmarket, and Farmington gets to the point where they need that existing capacity or the capacity of the existing pipe. And then the plan would be to, or is to, provide a more direct route to serve Elko Newmarket through a facility that would be located basically south of Air Lake to where Biscayne, if you extend Biscayne to the south, it would run up to Biscayne and then connect to our existing interceptor system close to the Vermilion River. So the improvements that were made 20 years ago or so was interim in nature to take advantage of the original investments that were made or acquired, as the case may be, in those facilities in Lakeville and Farmington. But long-term, there's a need to recapture that capacity by building a parallel relief facility dedicated for Elko Newmarket, and presumably that's out perhaps a project that might be necessary in the next 20-year planning horizon, but it would also open up opportunities for additional capacity for Eureka Township if they so want it. As you know, we were out at a meeting there a few years ago, and the consensus was they weren't ready for regional service at that time. So that will be part of the considerations when that project, the timing of that project and the sizing of that facility.
When you say facility, are you talking about an interceptor?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, Mr. Chair. It actually, currently, Elko Newmarket is served by gravity, crosses Highway 35, a geography lesson here, crosses Highway 35, then is served through a lift station that pumps the flow. And part of the intent of the lift station was to accommodate the concerns that Eureka Township had about opening up agricultural land, the rural nature of the township, for pressure for development. So a force main and lift station is kind of an artificial way to kind of restrict that availability of service, if you will. The future facility, this interceptor relief, will phase out that lift station, and gravity service would be accommodated for Elko Newmarket all the way from Elko Newmarket to the connection on Biscayne by Vermilion River.
Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you. So in some ways that'll save us money, because originally there was discussion of having to upsize that lift station as flow got bigger, but gravity's always cheaper than pumping.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and more reliable too.
Yeah.
Can't turn it off or anything like that. Unless you're a Marvel superhero or something like that. Other questions? I'm curious on this plan.
you look back at Thrive and look at this proposed plan as it stands right now, what are like the 2 or 3 things that really stand out as being different from Thrive? We have different contaminants that we may be paying more attention to. Maybe reuse is emphasized more. Are there other things that, like, compared to Thrive or previous plans, this is brand spanking new for this plan as it stands right now?
Mr. Chair, you've identified, I would say, many of the major new items or challenges that we see coming kind of up on the horizon. I think sulfates, nitrogen is definitely one that, as Emily pointed out, I think it was basically earlier this week where the PCA released its intent on nitrogen regulations, which could have a fairly significant impact. I have not looked at those, but I know that in the 2040 policy plan, they were talking in order to address the original estimate, to address at the time what was viewed as the potential nitrogen limits was about $2 billion of investment across all of our facilities. Now, I don't know whether the limits that were assumed in the 2040 plan is consistent with the recently released limits, but you also have inflationary costs in there too. So I'm guessing that we're probably still talking about a nine-figure price tag. And then we have sulfates. Then we have sulfates on top of it.
And PFAS coming down
And
the pike.
PFAS is another question, correct?
And can I add to that? You did hit on the big ones with contaminants for sure, and reuse definitely. We're making more we're making more comments about supporting reuse both internally and across the region. And in general, and less on the operational side, but how this one is different is it is, tied a little bit more closely to the regional development guide. And in the system plan, we do describe, how the wastewater system plan matches with the values of the regional development guide. So the goal is to be, one united plan, and that is reflected in this plan, which is different than Thrive.
Excellent. Councilmember Wolf and then Councilmember Carter.
The reduction in per capita flow is also a big
That's a big one. I
deal.
was gonna
And that was
mention that.
something that was a big worry in the past. How are we gonna accommodate it? And the things that we put out there to fix are working.
Yeah, from 100, well, I always used 100, and now we're looking at 60 per person per day. It's just a huge jump. Thanks to I&I measures, thanks to more water efficient appliances. That's a great deal. That's a good thing to recognize, as well as the 70% drop in phosphate from the last plan. I mean, that's a great accomplishment.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, that's an excellent point. Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could give us a recap on, because I know it changes over time, or sources of some of the key contaminants, like, example, chloride. What are the key sources, for the most part, that originate that particular contaminant? And could you give us, take maybe 3 key ones and give us the sources? This is a recap.
Mr. Chair, I'll take a first attempt at it. For nitrogen, I know that will be non-point source, so a lot of agricultural areas have nitrogen fertilizer, and that is a big component that we're, like we said, figuring it out still as it just came out. Chlorides, a large component are water softeners from individual homes. Road salts also are a really large component. I'm not sure about sulfates, so that's not my area of expertise. And then PFAS, 3M is a large source, nonstick materials, firefighting foam.
And I know you guys already have a campaign to try to inform the public.
Pardon what?
You have a campaign already. I think I remember here before that you guys already have a campaign to try to inform the public about their role and what they can do to try to mitigate some of that.
Mr. Chair, we do through partnerships with particularly with salts and sodium, with road salt application, especially private application of road salts. It's more of a partnership than really anything that we really have any real authority to really implement. We had a partnership when mercury in our air stack was an issue, and we worked with the metro area dentists, amalgam. Mercury, the silver fillings had a high content of mercury in it. We worked with the local dentists to keep that out of the waste stream and saw a significant reduction in the mercury that was attributed to that program. At one point, you mentioned nitrogen a little bit. I did read a little bit of the PCA's release on nitrogen, and it did cite that only 10% of the nitrogen that enters the receiving waters of the state come from wastewater treatment facilities, and that the vast majority of it is from agricultural runoff. But point source reduction is easier to implement, easier to measure than agricultural runoff. So, and I think also, if I'm not mistaken, maybe you know, Craig, I think the Clean Water Act actually exempts agricultural uses in the Clean Water Act. So because of that, because of its, its ease to identify the source and regulate and measure, the point sources is what really gets a lot of the focus as opposed to the ag runoff.
Councilmember Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is some work going on in the ag community to decrease it anyway. They've even been talking about using drones to spray the field so you can get it really, really precise on how much you're applying, because that costs money and the farmers don't want to put on more than they need to pay for either. So they are working on it. And there has been some discussion in the past on encouraging consumers to get new water softeners, because the old one, people put them in and then they never think about them again. And it might be 30 years old and really, really inefficient. And the new ones, just like everything else has been getting more efficient, the new water softeners have been getting more efficient. But that's not something that is obvious to you that it's not working as well. If your refrigerator goes bad, you really know it, but people don't realize how much money they could save on salt if they get a new water softener, if they have a water softener. So there have been some discussions about alerting the public to that, but I haven't seen a ton of it going on.
Yeah, just in follow-up to that, Mr. Chair, water softeners, there's two basic kinds. There's the kind that are triggered by a clock, so many cycles per week, irregardless of whether or not you need the brine tank or the resin tank to be recharged, or you have the type that's actually based on water use, the volume of water use. So those are much more efficient because it actually goes through that cycle when it's required. A house that's vacant for a year, that water softener, if it's on a clock, it's still going to recharge a couple times a week, whereas opposed to when it's on demand, it may not recharge at all. So those can actually have a huge savings on the salt introduction into the system, sodium. Good point.
Interesting. Great. Other questions, comments? Yeah, please.
Thank you, Chair. In the long-term capital improvement program, you mentioned that we have 3 phases, and now we are in the systemic expansions phase. So my question is, how many years exactly we have each period before we go to the next phase?
Mr. Chair, I'll clarify that. Thank you for that question. Our projects are categorized by any of those objectives, so it's not necessarily by time. So Lining a pipe would be an asset preservation, but building a new water resource recovery facility is a system expansion type project. So depending on the capital program, if you look at our whole list of projects, we have different percentages categorized in each of those three. So it changes, could be year over year, you know, if we wrap up a big rehabilitation project.
It's cyclic in nature. Yeah, you'll go through a period of time where you got a lot of growth projects, and then it'll swing back to rehabilitation. If you think about the age of our system profile, the vast majority of our system was built, earlier today you heard about a manhole that was built in 1988, or 1888. And so a lot of you know, the last decade, we've really been focusing on the rehabilitation of the system. And a lot of that is due to the fact of that age profile, if you will. We're slowly kind of catching up on that, but we're also looking at the necessity to build additional system capacity, because a lot of the system that was originally built in the 70s when growth was really high, and it's kind of gone down a little bit, so that allowed us to focus more on the rehabilitation of the system with the Crow River treatment facility and the need to build facilities in Hastings for capacity related, and then also to the solids projects at Blue Lake and Metro also represent growth. You'll see, we're going to start to see that swing, or that proportion of the growth projects become more prevalent than what we've historically seen, which has been in the rehabilitation of the system.
Please, Councilmember Wolf.
We're also seeing more solids improvements. We were able to put off some capacity stuff because of the lower flows. But just because we were using less water doesn't mean that there wasn't as much solids. And so with the new population bringing more solids, now we're needing to see some solids improvements in our process.
Yes. Reduction in flow doesn't necessarily mean
delicately.
reduction in solids.
We need some solid improvement from you guys.
More people.
I'll be here all night, folks. And what was that percentage again that you mentioned? So we got $7 to $9 billion of total system value, and we anticipate like 1.5% or something like that expenditures each year, which equals 100 and something million.
1.8%.
1.8.
Which equates to around 130 million. And that's allowing us to kind of revisit the assets on a 20-year cycle. So kind of checking over time, like a regular check, I guess, of the quality and see what maintenance is needed.
Wow. 1.8%, 130 million. Wow. Good news, it's only 1.8%.
Yeah, it's so small.
It's $130 million. All right, other questions, comments? Thank you very much. We'll see you again at the end of May. Sounds like.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to our final item. Any reports?
Thank you, Chair, council members. Not much to report. Lisa is out, so I am stepping in for her today. The one item that I would like to announce is we do have the chair or the council members tour down at the Metro plant coming on Friday, 1 o'clock. And the new regional administrator, Ryan, will be on the tour. So if you did sign up, great, we'll see you down there this coming Friday. If you did not sign up and still want to come along, we do have a bus, so we're gonna have plenty of room. So encouraged to wanna come down and see the plant and the various projects that are happening. It is, like I said, it is basically the largest plant we have. There's a lot of infrastructure. And there's a lot of infrastructure investment happening, especially around the solids.
Are
Thank
we
you.
meeting here and taking a bus down there? Maybe, are we all meeting
I
there
think
or
we're all-
whatever?
Usually you meet there.
Yeah, we'll be
Meeting there.
meeting down there.
Yep.
And then we'll have a bus from our friends over in transit. And we'll do a little presentation and then we'll come take the tour.
Perfect. Looking forward to it. Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My week is sort of in flux this week, and I can't say for sure that I could attend, but what's the deadline for making a decision? Can I just show
Friday,
up, or do I have?
12:30.
Okay, well, I didn't know if we have to be on a list ahead of time, or if it's
No.
just show up if you want.
Show up, if you- we do have the room.
Okay.
So again, if you can make it, great.
We don't have any quorum issues that we need to,
No,
if
I believe
someone
that,
else shows up, we need to post it or something like
No,
that.
I believe the.
Open meeting violations.
As long as we don't talk any business, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're tourists there.
Cool.
It is a fun tourist,
Yeah.
not a trap. It's a tourist site.
Exit through the gift shop?
We need to build one.
I will not be stopping at the gift shop.
Yeah.
Wastewater.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.